everyone. Thank you so much for joining this special edition, hybrid edition of our OMGKRK Virtual Funders Breakfast. I'm Dominika and I'm the CEO of our community. And this is the event that is dedicated for discussing growth strategies related to your business expansion. So today I have like a great speakers with us, but I also want to thank you, Małopolska, which is also the supporter of OMG operations and also of that project. And today is actually a wrap up of the series of those virtual funders breakfasts that we had, and also the mentoring sessions one-on-one that we had as an additional component to this growth, let's say, learning program that we had. And today I have with me Przemek and Andrei, great entrepreneurs and managers that are supporting the growth of international and Polish startups here. So they will share with you their growth strategies during the pandemic, some key learnings, some tips, and we'll probably start with those general statements first that they could share from their hearts, like what they believe is crucial for other future entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs to learn from their operations. But then I can follow up with some additional questions and hopefully engage you in the conversation so that you can also ask them some direct questions. So let's maybe start with Andrei.
Sure.
FLYR. Like I met Andrei during the pandemic, so that was the time in which the airline industry was heavily affected, and no one knew in which direction it goes. So I believe that I'm super curious to learn like how you managed to not only struggle with all those problems and crises, but also fully, let's say, succeed in that period by acquiring 150 million USD, right? Even before the pandemic actually finished. So let us know how that happened, and you know, any learnings we can have for our community and businesses in general.
Sure. Thanks, Dominika. First off, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today and share my experiences and you know, how our path so far kind of evolved with FLYR. So my name is Andrei Checiches. Don't worry about the last name. It's almost impossible to pronounce. As Dominika said, I represent the EMEA operations, FLYR Labs. You know, FLYR is a company. I'll give you a bit of background around FLYR first. You know, we're small, we're growing, and we want people to understand what we're all about. So FLYR is a company that's founded and headquartered in Silicon Valley. Krakow represents one of 5 engineering locations that we have across the globe. We're also present in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Dallas, and most recently in Amsterdam as well in Europe. You know, Krakow is on its path of being our biggest engineering center with a planned headcount of more than 100, and among others we have product people here, we have data scientists, we have machine learning engineers, we have software developers. A bit about what FLYR is doing. You know, if you think about airlines and travel and transportation companies across, they mostly use a very limited amount of vendors for their needs. Sabre and Amadeus are the 2 biggest names in these areas. And Sabre is actually one company that also has a presence in Krakow. Most of these legacy vendors, right? They're very slow. They're very slow to innovate, right? And they're generally, I would say, in a tough position trying to transition to cloud or trying to transition to SaaS. That's why I'm going to be talking in a bit about what FLYR develops and in that context. So what we do is we develop a deep learning based platform, I would say, which built on top of airlines commercial data. What it does is it forecasts accurately future demand and future revenue for airlines. What we find with our software is we typically generate on our customer side around 5 to 7% growth in revenue and around 4% in seats sold. That's kind of what we do conceptually, and that's what our technology is used for. COVID, as Dominika said, was obviously very impactful for this business area, right? And we found that most of our customers' strategies shifted at the very beginning to cutting costs, right? To downsizing operations. So we made a bet that by Q3 of 2020, airlines and their legacy technologies, their legacy systems that do forecasting, their legacy systems that do pricing, will actually stop working. Why? Because the world around them has just significantly changed, right? And so their forecasting abilities have dramatically been affected. The bet paid off for us, to be honest. It was somewhere around August of 2020 when we realized that, hey, we're right? We're right, and we managed to launch with our first major airline customer, which was Air New Zealand. It was, in our perception, a great success, and it was this success that was matched with other major airline companies around the world being faced with the same type of challenges that enabled us to actually sign more contracts before the end of the year. So that was a trend that we were hoping for, and a trend that could come as an unnatural trend for this business area for the end of 2020, right? But we could see that airlines are now really hungry for technologically advanced solutions. In terms of just touching a bit on the fundraise, yes, right, we managed to secure our biggest round so far, and the way we achieved that is worthy of probably many hours of discussion today. But 2020 and beginning of 2021 for our CEO Alex was really just spending a lot of effort in ensuring that we can raise capital to continue investment in product, but also to increment capacity as we see demand, right? Us recovering in the beginning of Q2 of 2021, we've seen a recovery trend in the space of airlines, right? And match that up with a lot of the new contracts that we had recently been signing with major airlines around the globe. This all led to $150 million worth of a capital raise during our Series C round. And that just concluded in September of this year. So we're very happy and excited. And if I think about a couple of things COVID taught us, right? On one hand, it taught us and our customers that technology that is being used in this business area, right, is not effective when we're faced with changes as impactful as COVID is, right? And thanks to technologies like the ones we developed, right, we're actually one of the very few viable solutions out there for customers in times of such change, right? In the eventuality that COVID will continue to last for as long as it will, or in the eventuality that any other events of similar amplitude will happen, we believe that it's just going to accelerate the demand for such solutions, right? The demand for our product. So we believe we're just going to be in a far better position with our customers who are hungry, right, for such solutions. Other things that to me are really important as a leader are, and I'm not keeping it for last because this is the last on my priority list, but one thing that is really important, I think, in enabling, growth and resilience is that leaders think about continuous investment in people, right? We do continuously invest in people, but I think what COVID helped us realize is we need to pay a lot more attention to what people's needs are, right? All of a sudden, everybody's working in a completely different environment, right? All of a sudden, we have all these virtual interaction tools that are basically the main means of collaboration and interaction. And we realize that it's becoming more and more difficult to actually understand what people are going through, right? To understand if we have a risk. Yes, from a business standpoint, you want to prevent attrition from happening, but at the same time, you want to care for the well-being of your employees, right? So we've been making a far more proactive effort in just making sure we understand what people go through, right? We have our leaders think about building mechanisms that allow them to pulse how their staff is feeling, right? And also continuously make investments towards addressing whether it's the physical or mental health well-being of our staff. Yes, that means coming up with a lot of cool work from home benefits and stipends. Yes, that's a part of it. But I think more than that, it has culturally driven the organization towards a point where we feel we're now focused a lot more on building those relationships, whether virtually or in person, than when we have the opportunity, and also paying a lot more attention and asking people more proactively what it is that they need, what their development needs are, but even their day-to-day needs, right? Whether it's a work environment type setup, whether it's having to work from home, whether it's needing to be in the office, we're finding ourselves having those conversations a lot more often. Recruitment obviously changed a lot for us, right, during COVID as well. And I think all of you that are aware of the Polish labor market right now in the space of IT are aware of the fact that, as an employer today, your competition is not only Polish-based companies, right? It's now companies outside of Poland that don't even have a branch office. So that drives a spike in people's expectations, right? Also the fact that people have almost literally been stuck for 2 years at home generated a pattern where people now expect that they are able to work from home, right? At the very minimum in a hybrid type setup. So the sourcing landscape slightly changed. And what we learned from it is, because we're in an advanced growth stage, we still need to get the talent, right? And we cannot compromise the talent that we get, but at the same time, in order to get that talent, we need to be very quick, right? Because the demand is high. There are more than ever jobs available for IT professionals out there. So we learn how to set a threshold of a maximum amount of time we want to spend recruiting and making a decision from the beginning, which is screening a CV, up till literally making a decision. We've been adamant about not extending a 2-week period for that whole process. And that is when we have dependencies on the candidate. Otherwise, we're looking at closing in within the week. It requires us to be flexible, of course, right? It requires us to build sourcing capability that we didn't necessarily have at the beginning, right? Because we want to get to resources, we want to get there quick. We've been building a lot of partnerships with third-party companies to allow us to get access to as many candidates as possible. But what we learned through that, and that was I think, an experience that we had to go through, is there are, it's the last thing I'm going to say. There are just as many partners out there that you will find the right fit, right? And it helped us actually understand who do we want to collaborate with on the long run, and who do we want to use as our sourcing source.
Yeah, I wanted to interrupt because you
Sure.
mentioned the sourcing partners and you were touching so many aspects related to talent. So that made me
Yes,
go more towards
absolutely.
that way. And because like we have the best expert in town in those aspects. So
I don't know. We are building high expectations now.
so Przemek, tell us also like your story and your background, like how the Everuptive group was struggling with those pandemia times and actually how it managed to survive, because like on one hand some companies were expanding their operations and growing, but probably others were, let's say, wrapping up or closing some of the operations, right? So the demand for talent was to some maybe decreasing, right? So how you struggled or how you let's say
we almost went bankrupt, so like we struggled a lot last year. So thank you for having me here.
Yes,
my name is Przemek. I'm the owner and CEO of Everuptive Group. In Everuptive Group, we build products that have three things in common. So the first thing is that they should be disruptive. They must be disruptive, so they must show how to change a market or a process or something. The second thing is they're digital, and the last thing, their vision should be to support an individual to fulfill the potential of the individual. So this is why we do the education, e-learning, and recruitment products. So 95% of my time I'm managing Talent Place, our recruitment product. So other products are run by other people in the company. And I would like to focus in my speech on Talent Place because, as I told you before, that we almost went bankrupt, and now we're doing very well. And it's like been 18 months. So our reality has changed dramatically and rapidly. So I just want to tell you the story of Talent Place, the last 18 months of running Talent Place, because it was a roller coaster. But we survived and we are stronger than any time. So you were asking us to share our experience about the growth and the resilience in pandemic crisis time. So I think this story will be the best way to show you how we dealt with this situation. So Talent Place before COVID was doing 1 million euro revenue. We were focused on BPO SSC companies, so recruiting those guys who speak fluent German, French, I don't know, other foreign languages, mostly Europeans. So we were cooperating with ABB, Shell, Accenture, those big guys, mostly in Krakow, some other cities in Poland too. And we were doing fine, we were earning money, we were growing. This sector is growing in Poland, the BPO sector, so our perspective was pretty good. But in March, maybe I will tell you what Talent Place do actually. So we recruit via the community of recruiters. So we have now 154 recruiters, professional recruiters, for mostly freelancers, and we recruit via those recruiters. So we have this quote in our company that every candidate is in someone's database. So we try to do as little sourcing as we can because sourcing takes time. And we try to, interact with those recruiters and promote and support the synergy between them and the sharing their work and their candidates. So this is why we can recruit faster and I think better than our competitors, and this disruptive way of recruitment. Also, our commercial models that we cooperate with our partners are different than the major model, which is success fee. We think that success fee is bad. You can't do the quality of your service in recruitment when you are paid 100% fee after the placement is made. So we are disruptive in the way we recruit, but also in the way we cooperate with our partners. Our models, they should support partnership, not being a vendor of someone, Yeah. So before the COVID, we were focused on BPO SSC, and we were doing well. We were growing and earning money. So in March, when the first lockdown came to Poland, like the situation was like changing. So like our clients were calling us and saying like, guys, these are global decisions. We are freeze now, so we'll let you know. We'll unfreeze ourselves and we will like be back in the recruitment mode, you know. So like from April to August, like we went almost to zero with our revenues, and most of the revenues in my company, they come from talent place, like the majority. So like we're like receiving those calls in Q2 2020, and I think only one company stayed with us, like with this 30% of the demand they used to have, and there was like nothing to do with that. Like nobody was recruiting, everybody was scared, everybody was freezed, and the inertia of decisions in those big companies it takes time to change something in those corporate world. So yeah. So first thing what we did, the crisis is a game of cash and time, like always. So like if you want to survive, you need to have cash and enough time to rebuild your revenue. So fortunately, we don't spend like crazy. So like we had some cash in March on our bank account. So like we used it, but our cost structure is also like good for a crisis because we have more variable costs than the fixed costs because of the marketplace model. So yeah, so this was also prepared like for this kind of occasion, the crisis occasion. So and we did cut our fixed cost 30% in like 2 months. So we were negotiating our like contracts with our partners, but also we asked people, like everybody's salary was like cut some percent. So yeah, if you have high fixed costs and the crisis come, especially this kind of crisis like Corona crisis, when everything was happening very fast, you're dead. Like you need to think in advance about your cost structure, about contracts you have. Like we don't have any long-term liabilities. Like salaries are the longest. So this helped us a lot. The second thing that was important that time was the communication. So like my job was mostly about the decision making then and communicating those decisions to people. Like and everybody was expecting us to tell them what will happen, and we had no idea what will happen in this crisis. So like we had those kind of, you know, calls, like the crisis calls every month, when I was like telling what the situation, financial situation, what are our perspectives to the team. But this transparent and honest communication, because we were very transparent and honest, help us to be this kind of, you know, focus and determination in team to find the solution, how to make revenues, like other sources of revenues, how to find them. So like I think that first thing that was important to survive was costs, then communication, and then being flexible. So like the biggest priority in Q2 and Q3, when we knew that it's bad, like we need to find another source of revenue, and if not, we will like won't survive, or we'll have to fire everybody. And we were like fighting to keep every, you know, person in the company. So so you need to act agile and be flexible. And we had like 7 ideas how to make revenues, and we were like testing them that time. No vacation for everybody, like no, like we are in a survival mode. We need to find the solution before vacation time, because in vacation time, you know, everybody's gone, so like it's the pace is slower. So like, you know, testing. six hypotheses, and actually one was good. So like we had this hypothesis that we should maybe forget about BPO SSC companies and those big international guys, and try to focus on sectors that are not so badly hit by a pandemic. So we were like, we wanted to do MŚP, like small medium companies, which is completely different than corporate world. And we are focused on OZE companies, so the green energy, IT companies, startups with founding, I don't remember, engineering companies. And we were like doing, I think, 50 calls with different CEOs or founders or owners to understand what are their attitude towards the recruitment services, like the outsourced recruitment services, what are their experience with that. And we're like trying to iterate our offer for MŚP in those sectors that had money that time, because OZE had money because of the government, like startups, they had money because of the investors. IT companies, after 2 months, were doing great because like everybody understood that like some products will grow because of the pandemic very, very rapidly. So during Q3, we're like iterating our offer. So like in Q2, we found this like the light in the tunnel, and we were iterating a new offer and learning how to deal with MŚP companies. And in Q4, we were like starting to do the sales, like the regular sales. And actually, like it worked. So thanks to pandemic, we found better market for us. Okay, BPO SSC is coming back, so I'm very happy because of that, because it's happening now. But thanks to pandemic, we went for the market that is much bigger than corporate world, and we started to think internationally. So we have clients now from States, from Asia, from Germany. So like we had to figure out how to survive, and we thanks to that we went for the better markets, bigger markets that grow now rapidly. The competition is not so high as in corporate world. I think that to sum up, I think that the crisis always time when you can, if you survive, you will be stronger, so it's a chance. And my piece of advice for entrepreneurs is that you should think about costs in crisis time, communication, then iterate your value proposition, your product very fast, and find a new revenue stream, and then like be bold and courageous to enter new market. And now, like, thanks to the decision that we're like fighting for all the people in the company, we had people when everything was melting and coming back, we had people to deliver our services. So like from Q2 this year, like we are growing rapidly. Like from January till September, we grew 3 times like our revenue. So it's a crazy pace, but we deliver. So we are stronger than any time before. Yeah.
It's so amazing to hear this type of story. So one of the maybe follow-up questions to what you said is about let's say qualities or characteristics of the talent that you kept within your team, or that, let's say, help you survive those difficult times. Because I believe that especially in those challenging times, as you mentioned, you need this strong team that will be, let's say, fighting towards the same goal, that will be, let's say, resigning from many benefits that they may have during that time, like vacations or some extra bonuses, etc. But that would be also determined to maybe pivot in some of the, let's say, current obligations that they have, or a current set of, let's say, tasks that they do. So how do you, let's say, find those people, or how now when you're looking into your recruitment plans, what would be the ideal profile of the person that would help you with the next of this type of struggle? Like, would you be able to tell us like how to find that best talent that has those crucial skills that can help you in those, let's say, challenging times, to not only to maybe survive but also to grow, right? So like what qualities those people should have and how to find them, that would be my first follow-up question.
Sure, Przemek, if you don't mind, I can go first.
Go ahead.
So on our front, like just a bit of background, we haven't adjusted the way we source talent pre-COVID to post-COVID, right? Like if you take a look at how we seek for talent, it's always been the same type of process, and people would think, you know, looking from the outside, that we have a heavy process, right? That there's unnecessary steps in there. Compared to a normal experience, you may have that perception. But what we found during COVID, that the fruit of having had such a process, and to give people, you know, more around what the process looks like, we basically split our recruitment, our hiring process in 3 steps. We obviously have our recruiters reach out and do the first type of screening. Then we have an HR manager type screen where they get to speak to the hiring manager. In the meantime, if the role is technical, we give people technical exercises that they can do at home. But where I think the differentiator is at the very end, where we generally make it a habit to have people have more of an informal type of experience speaking or being interviewed, let's say, by their peers, whether it's their manager peers or whether it's colleagues that they will be working with in the future. We generally have at the very end a list of 3 to 4 people that will have discussions with individuals, and they will check different areas of the individual's abilities. So you may think it's quite, you know, it's quite long and it's quite cumbersome, but we found that because of that, you know, the product with this process was people that actually understand their contribution to what we do, and their work actually has a meaningful impact to our product, to our end product, right? Then they don't feel that we're not big enough where people would feel that they're working on a very small functionality that wouldn't even be marketable, right? So everybody kind of understands what it is that their work contributes towards. And I think that weighed a lot in actually keeping people with us, right? On top of that, you were speaking of transparency as well. We were very transparent as we went through COVID around how we're doing as a company, right? And I feel that being transparent and at the same time having made what we feel were the right sourcing decisions allowed us to have what I believe is an unexpectedly low attrition rate throughout COVID. So we just kept doing. We didn't have to adjust, right? And I think what we did is we just improved on it. And we realized that as a growing company, we actually have an opportunity to build branding through recruitment. So we just built on it. We iterated on it. And we said, yes, we want to keep the way we evaluate and the way we, you know, match. But we also want to start building up on that and give people a positive experience as they go through the process, even if they're not successful in completing, right? Because we did realize the numbers, right? The numbers are in our advantage. looking at the candidates that we process through the pipeline, and we want to leverage that to build a brand on top of other things.
Przemek, any top talents that help you talent place to survive?
I was very focused on management boards, so like my team of managers, because I knew that if they will have the right attitude and they will perform during this tough time, the whole company will, like, if you're the CEO, like, you don't have so much touch points with like all the people. So I think that I understood that, and I was like really focusing on them. And my learning from that time is the very important trait of character when we speak about manager in the crisis time is the flexibility, the entrepreneurial mindset. So these guys, they feel okay when everything changes, and they understand that now is bad, it will be better in the future, like we need to like focus and work hard. Some people they don't feel okay in this kind of environment, like the fast changing environment. So if your core team doesn't have this kind of trait of character, it will be a problem, because they will freak out, you know, like they will be scared, and they will, like, you know, foster this attitude cascaded, you know. So like I would always look for people with this kind of flexibility and entrepreneurial mindset, which means for me that we'll figure out how to survive, we'll figure out how to adjust, adapt, and this is very, very important.
What about the communication, like how to communicate like this type of let's say bad news on one hand in a good way, and on the other hand like how to foster communication in those hybrid modes that you mentioned, because like now many people expect to have this remote work, right? How to keep that spirit and that motivation between the team to actually work more closely together. And
maybe we can get the audience involved a little bit as we're coming up on 10 o'clock. So maybe someone has a comment or question.
Exactly. So feel free to add anything to, or even ask your own question now, so that you can you know, utilize those experts' insights. Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking about I guess recruiting employees, but also I know